Cities are defined by their cultures. Those cultures could entail sports or business or certainly arts and entertainment. Oklahoma City is thriving in all of these areas. But who makes that all happen? This Town OKC explores the people behind the cultures, their origins, their motivations, their challenges, and their dreams. I'm Rick Allen Lippert. I've been in this town for over 50 years with a front row seat to seeing the culture grow from a dusty bus stop on the Southern Plains to a flourishing destination. Join me as we meet the folks behind the culture on This Town OKC. Leslie Spears, I know so little about you other than the fact that you used to work at the Oklahoma City Museum of Art, and I believe Guernsey and Associates before that.
Yes.
And then you've been at Myriad Gardens, and now you're with the Oklahoma Gazette.
Yes.
You have been in the center of culture for, I don't know, a couple, 3 decades?
Yeah, and I got to put in 5 years at the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce when all the MAPS 1 venues were having their ribbon cuttings, their groundbreakings, and, went to the first night at the ballpark, which was very glorious.
So, since this podcast highlights the people behind the culture, you've been a part of that culture. What's your story, young lady? Where did you go to high school?
Here we go. Everyone wants you to go to high school here, but I went to high school in Virginia, Alexandria, Virginia, off the D.C. area.
Okay.
Just by fluke. Everyone thinks I'm military or something because there's a big base right there, Fort Belvoir. But my dad moved us to Raleigh, North Carolina for my junior high years. I call them my formative years. He just found a better job, and it was me, my sister, and mom and dad. And dad and mom divorced after about 4 years, and then mom moved us up to Alexandria, Virginia, which actually we lived in Lawton, but I went to high school in Alexandria. It's, the D.C. metro area. And that was a great place to go to high school. I mean, we would go over to Georgetown for fun. And we had some experiences that maybe high school students shouldn't see, but
I'll bet you did. So then where did you go to college?
Oh, well, I didn't make it to college. I decided at my brother's encouraging. I had an older brother and older sister that stayed back in Oklahoma, and just that area was so intense, the D.C. metro area. It would have eaten me alive. And so I just came back to Oklahoma City, lived with him for about 6 months.
So your dad was here? Your brother?
My brother. And I lived with my brother for a while, about 6 months. And then I got a job as a bank teller and got my own apartment.
Oh, excuse me while I yawn.
Oh! I was a horrible bank teller, by the way. This won't make you yawn. I was horrible, and they let me do it for 3 years. But they fired me. I was a fired bank teller and a drive-in fired bank teller. But but it was fun. It was the bank is no longer around. I guess I shut it down.
So how did you get started in PR? That's public relations for those of you uninitiated.
Yeah. Well, it was, I just had so let me just make this short. So I was looking for a job, and a friend that worked at a printing company, a family friend, got me a job as a receptionist at a printing company. And there I learned, the backside of printing and, all about that stuff. And it was in the 80s. And also advertising people would come in to check their proofs. And I built a relationship. I got to tell you, if you're a receptionist as a young person, you need to build your relationships. You need to remember names. You need to have personality. And so I got hired on at an ad agency to be their receptionist. And at that agency, I remembered names. I had personality. And I met a lot of media people. And so I ended up working at a radio station called KZBS. I was their receptionist, and it was owned by a man named Bill Lacey.
Oh, yes.
Yes, you remember that.
Oh.
And it was crazy times. I saw so much And we played contests. It was a big contest radio station.
Right.
They would give away Jaguars and they would do everything. They'd spend so much money on getting ratings. And then they would have the ratings parties. And that's when radio stations were really all the rage. And I mean, he would have parties at Eufaula. We would rent the Three Boys houseboats, and there would always be a ratings party. And I learned so much. I mean, we had everything from Jerry Seinfeld when he was coming about. He would be at Laughs, or it was in Lakeshore Mall. Okay, I guess it was Jokers at Lakeshore Mall.
Yeah.
And he would come in, and I remember that Thomas Dolby song was on about, and do you feel scared? I do. Remember that song? Yeah. Jerry goes, what does he mean by, and do you feel scared? And I was just like, I don't know. I just thought he was some comedian traveling around. But we also had like Ho-Ho come in, and all the office girls were just we all sat around Ho-Ho and praised him as our childhood hero.
Yeah.
And God love him. But I just saw so many great things. Well, and then that preceded me going to KOMA KRXO, where I got promoted to promotions manager. And then Cool 102, which, and yada, bada bing, bada bang, I got laid off. And I was like, I'm done. Because I think it was like the third time I'd gotten laid off. And I was like, I'm going to take all I've done, which I had seen so much, mass public, concerts and car dealerships. And so I just put that all into a resume and made it shine back before AI.
Right.
And that's when Guernsey picked me up. They thought I would make a good public relations person for them. I was so outgoing, having been in radio. I could talk to anybody. And engineers, the highly educated engineers, they were smart enough to know, Guernsey, that they needed someone that was a little more outgoing than them to help present them and get their name out into the public. And I did well. I did well for about 3 years. And so then...
I'm going to scoot my chair so I can be a little more.
Oh, sure.
I'll edit that out.
Okay. Well, so...
Hang on. All right.
So, I proceeded to... that was an email was coming about, and I just learned a lot. It was when the Oklahoma City bombing happened. We were at Northwest Expressway by the Baptist area. And I was there for 3 years, and then I got hired away by the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce to do graphic design. I'd picked up graphic design, and, I picked it up at Kinko's, back when Kinko's was Kinko's, because, you charge per hour, and when you get stuck, you go, hey, I need your help. And they were always so nice to get me through things, and that's how I learned. It was PageMaker back at the time, but I learned all the Adobe products. And
which Kinko's did you use?
63rd of May, it's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were so great. They don't do that anymore, and you're just kind of on your own, even to make copies. But so I did. I started the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber as the publications manager, where I proceeded to learn how to produce. That went back to my printing company time, and I learned a lot there. And then the chamber was great. I had so much fun, and talk about your connections. I mean,
oh yeah. And
they had so many events, and you would just meet, like, Clay Bennett was the president at the time, and I think I learned to become more politically aware and knew how important it was to know who your elected officials are. So the chamber taught me great things. And like I said, it was I was taking photos for the newsletter that they would do. It's called The Point, and it would get mailed to all the membership, which they had a very healthy membership. But I was taking photos of all this history happening.
History happening right in front of you. Because,
yes.
As you said
yes.
earlier, this was when all of the MAPS projects
yes.
were coming on board and
yes.
opening up.
And it was an exciting time because there was so much public criticism because no one had experienced a MAPS venue and what it meant for the city. And so I got to enjoy seeing people change their opinions.
Right.
Oh, yes, this is happening. This is great. And they became all in love with MAPS. And then MAPS 2 came along, and it was for public education. Oh, you know what? I'm going to back up. MAPS 1 fell short of arena money.
Right.
Kirk Humphreys was the mayor at the time. Well, he had a great firm called, it was CSN, and they, hi. They came on.
Go back and say Kirk Humphreys.
Okay, so Kirk Humphreys was the mayor at the time, and he needed some more money to finish the arena. So we actually started up a campaign called Finish Maps Right, and I worked really hard on that with graphic designs and taking photos, and I did the logo for that campaign, and I worked closely with Cole Hargrave Snodgrass was the name of the company, and I just love those guys, and so we got the vote. And it was a real exciting time to run a campaign like that. And so then the agency hired me to do more campaign work. So I really learned a lot about.
And just to explain for the listeners who might be wondering what we're talking about, MAPS was an acronym for Metropolitan Area Projects.
Yes.
And MAPS 1 was the 1 penny sales tax for 5 years to build the Bricktown Ballpark, the canal, remodel the Civic Center, improve the horse barns at the fairgrounds, and the library, build the library.
Yeah.
And I think that may have been all of it. And in the downtown arena,
The convention center. They did a revamping.
Yeah, the Myriad Convention Center got some updates, and the whole thing was $1/3 of $1 billion. It was $340 million. That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
And like you said, the money for the arena, what is now called the Paycom Center, fell a little short. So Humphreys spearheaded the drive to extend that penny for another 6 months.
Yes.
And so that was the Finish Maps Right.
Right. And, who knew at the time that we would have Maps 2, Maps 3, Maps 4? But it was a great experience. I enjoyed working alongside Kirk Humphreys, two totally separate people here. But the agency he had worked with that had also teamed with the chamber, and they often team with the chamber. And I got to tell you, our chamber is really strong in that regard. They can really sway a vote. It especially, I think, helps that the City of Oklahoma City is nonpartisan in their seats.
In the government, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that more gets done. And it makes you wish that more entities could be like that.
Yeah.
Because that's why Oklahoma City has all these new venues.
Exactly. I'm fond of saying that we taxed ourselves into prosperity.
Yeah. What's a penny?
Because I worked for the city of Oklahoma City back in those days and made the first videos that explained what MAPS was all about. And yes, there was a lot of apprehension.
There was.
And people
it was
didn't.
mean.
And the way it was packaged, if those items on that ballot had been separate, people would probably not have built the library.
Right, exactly.
They may not have done the canal. They certainly wouldn't remodel the Civic Center. Individually, a lot of those stood a chance to fail, but there was something in there that you really liked.
Yeah.
And so I really want the ballpark, so I guess I'll vote for it, and then all this other stuff comes along with it. And it was a brilliant plan.
It was. And yes, people were like, why don't I get to vote on one entity? And it's like, you know what? We just want to get it done and, just get it paid. Oh, I got to tell you, working at the Myriad Gardens, when you study their history, I've got to think something influenced the MAPS campaign, because the problem with the Crystal Bridge and the Myriad Gardens is it kept running out of money. They did like a groundbreaking in the early 70s, and then they ran out of money. And because Oklahoma City's oil boom bust, they had no city financial helping. In fact, they had demolished hotels in that block,
Right.
And it set as a whole and became a campaign slogan for the opponents. And they would say, "I will fill that hole in," and then they would get the job, and they get in there, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I see how it is."
Yeah.
But And then, we took the genius of Lee Allen Smith and Jim Tolbert, Mr. James Tolbert, and maybe a little Stanley. No, Stanley. No, it was D.A. McGee.
D.A. McGee.
McGee.
I videotaped the ribbon cutting for the city.
Yeah.
One of the first jobs I did when I worked for there. And a shot video of Dean McGee cutting the ribbon on that thing.
Oh, okay. Well, I got to tell you, they spent 10 years running out of money. And finally, they had some last minute fundraisers come in and figure out, well, we can't count on the oil industry. We got to really get some new revenue. But so today with MAPS, you have the money up front. The venue is paid for after it's finished, which is, I don't think people understand how huge that is because the Myriad Gardens suffered.
And that was another revolutionary concept in the whole MAPS projects.
Right.
When these venues opened, when these entities opened, they were paid for. There was no 30-year bond money to pay off over.
It's genius, I think.
Yeah. And it has worked very well for Oklahoma City. And like you mentioned, we're now on MAPS 4. And when it's said and done, I forget the total amount, but it's close to $1 billion for all of MAPS 4. And considering how MAPS 1 added a paltry little 300 million and change, people thought that's way too much money. How far we've grown.
I know. And so, about that time I was at the Chamber, I was really becoming I was really drawn to the Oklahoma City Museum of Art. I had a friend get me involved with it and just loved it. Met Carolyn Hill.
Yes, she was wonderful.
I was the number one volunteer. And you know what happens? You especially should know, when you're number one volunteer, sometimes they hire you.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes, if there's money in the budget.
Yeah. Well, I was worried about that because when I was a volunteer for the art museum, on their wish list was a box of copy paper. And I know, it was really sad. And so I was like, I'm not going to a place. But Carolyn Hill had come in, and she had done some serious... she just flipped that art museum around when it was at the fairgrounds.
Right.
And so I was assured that they've got copier paper. And being a volunteer, I knew about the inner working. So in 2000, she hired me to come work, and that would mean working at the fairgrounds. And then moving over with the art museum into downtown. So we helped pack up all that stuff. Well, I didn't pack it. I was in charge of PR and marketing. But, at the fairgrounds, 9/11 happened, and things kind of got slowed down a little bit. I got to the art museum when they were doing their auger drill, their cast auger drill into that dirt that was under the Center Theater.
Okay.
Really, dirt from the 20s or whatever.
Yes.
So, yay, that was exciting.
What year did the museum open?
2002.
2002.
March 16th, 2002.
I know there was a lot of public apprehension about that, thinking that it was a MAPS project.
Right.
And they were saying, why is our money going to this art museum?
I know.
And you go, no, it's not. That was your job to explain that it wasn't.
People really need to read details. But, I talked to Steve Luckmeyer and Jack Money with the Oklahoman, and I said, they saw the story in the art museum as being kind of the non-MAPS venue that was inspired by MAPS,
exactly.
Which Carolyn Hill always said. We were completely inspired. Downtown was on the move, and that's where we wanted the art museum to be. So she raised $40 million, $22 million paid for it when it opened, and then $20 million went into an endowment fund. She was very clear that it needed an endowment fund. And she raised it.
Very wise woman.
And when I came there, they were still in the capital campaign, and they were sending letters to Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation at the time.
Wow.
And they were just reaching for the stars, and it paid off. And she had a big thermometer like you have And
Leslie is referring to the lobby of Carpenter Square Theater, where we're in the middle of an endowment campaign, and we have a thermometer graph in the lobby.
I like that. It's like old school, and it makes you know, because I think it's gone up since I was last here. That's wonderful.
It has, yeah.
Wonderful. But anyway, and we had a big there were press releases at every turn. You know, we had a groundbreaking, which John Kirkpatrick was involved with, you know, with the golden shovels. And that's where I started really helping them through my chamber work and getting to know the staff. And so anyway, yes, so she hired me and went through the grand opening in March 14th. A lot of people were like, it's not going to be open in time. And I had a friend at the city that said, we're placing bets that you're not going to open by March 14th, which was a preview event. And there was a gate still up, a fence still up around the construction site there off Hudson and Robert S. Kerr. And I told Carolyn Hill, and she said, well, you tell your friend, see you on the 14th.
Okay.
And she made it. She made it. And I came in that early morning to do a Channel 9 interview. And it was like one of those early 6 a.m.
Right.
When I left that night, it was a construction zone. When I came in, there were people working all night long to take the fence down, get all the construction stuff out of the way, and clean it. And it was stunning. And I was just in the interview, my face on TV, I was like, I left here last night and it's so pretty now. And I was in front of the Chihuly Tower, which we got to see all that go in.
Yeah. So I think it's safe to say that in Oklahoma City, that Museum of Art, located where it is, downtown, in between the Civic Center and the county courthouse across the street from City Hall, really is the epicenter of culture in Oklahoma City.
Sure. Yes. There are so many vibrant districts in downtown, and they just continue to amaze me with their very unique events. And, you know, all season long. There's a lot of stuff going on in the winter. But yes.
So I want to talk a little bit more about the museum stuff.
Okay.
And I don't know, I'll edit all of this out because I need a drink of water.
Yeah, me too.
And watch banging on the table.
Okay. You can't hear earrings, can you?
No, I
Okay.
don't hear those. I heard that. One of the things I really appreciate about the museum building and construction was the saving and renovation of the Center Theater, because it truly was the last of the downtown movie palaces. And it wasn't even the grandest movie palace. Mm-hmm. And I remember going there in the 70s, and it was a dump. But it was the only place in town to see midnight movies. I
know. We have a photo of, we were scrounging for photos of the Center Theater, but there's one that was clearly 70s, and the movie was Clute with Jane Fonda.
And Donald Sutherland.
Okay, Donald Sutherland. But yes, they saved the ticket box, the movie ticket box, those wonderful grills, those ornate grills.
Yes, and that staircase.
Oh, the staircase, and its banister.
Yes.
It's a plexiglass, but it's super strong plexiglass that withstood the test of time. And in it is the mistletoe and scissortail birds, because that was all about the states. Mistletoe was our official flower.
Yeah,
or something.
state flower, yeah.
It's not anymore, though, I guess. The redbud. Or is that the tree?
The redbud's a tree.
Okay. Well, anyway, it was just so beautiful, and Carolyn did such a good job. It was really low to the floor, but, because of ADA codes, we moved it up, and it actually looks really good. It was an exciting time. We had that restaurant and this gift shop, and then of course the Chihuly exhibit, which was so brand new at the time. People were just mesmerized by it, and I got to go in and see it being installed when they wouldn't allow people in.
When the Center Theater was still showing movies back in the 70s, I was recently transplanted here, and I had knee surgery to fix a bum knee from a soccer injury. So I was wearing a hip-to-toe cast.
Oh, my gosh.
And I was on crutches.
Yeah.
And on the second half of the semester of spring of 73, my first semester in college here. and I am on crutches, and I'm going to the midnight movie, and there was no elevator. So I got to go up that staircase on crutches.
Oh, my goodness. Bless your heart. Wow. That's so wrong.
The only saving grace was they let me in ahead of the line of people that were outside waiting to get in.
Oh, okay. Well, there's that.
There was that. I appreciated it. The place was still a dump.
Oh, well, we cleaned it up nice and good.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
The photos taken inside of it when it was first taken over by the art museum, I mean, it was just the whole ceiling had collapsed in on top of the stage. And what happened in that movie theater was pretty amazing to see the turnaround.
The seats that we have in the house at Carpenter Square Theater were from the Museum of Art when it first opened in '02.
Right.
And we bought them 2 months before COVID hit.
Oh, yeah. You know, that was hopefully they gave you a good deal.
We got an amazing deal.
Well, those seats
Thanks to
so
Allied
good.
Arts.
Okay. Those seats look so good in there. They took such good care of them. And I went to see a movie the other night at the art museum. It was a matinee. And I thought the new seats were really nice, too. I thought that
They're okay. They're okay. They have cup holders. These do not. That's why one of the reasons why Carpenter Square Theater has a drink rail.
Yes, I love your drink rails.
With purse hooks.
That's a dream come true.
Yeah.
Purse hooks.
Okay, so you've had a front row seat to a lot of the culture in this town.
Right. Yes, and then the art museum. Oh, we were like, I wonder if anyone's going to come. You know, opening weekend. It was free admission, underwritten by OCCF, Oklahoma Community Foundation, and we had lines waiting. You know, I want to say 5,000 people. The line went all the way around the building, and so Carolyn Hill stood at the door along with Nancy Ellis, who was the board president at the time. And I was positioned up on the second floor looking down, and I actually have a photo of me taking photos of people coming in. And yeah, it was glorious. And that was March 16th, which was a Saturday. And then we were open March 17th on St. Patrick's Day. So we had a lot of people wearing green come in. And it was just a really glorious time. And then, we had to learn some lessons on down the road
Of
about
course.
what exhibits might not do as good. And but I have to say that I think the art museum's very clever in their exhibit choices. I don't know if you got that invite, but they're celebrating the 80th anniversary of the art museum.
I did get the invite.
Well, they are going back.
Hoping to be there.
Yeah, they're going back to Eleanor Kirkpatrick started the art museum.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and it's been various forms, like it was at the Nichols Hills Plaza.
Right.
I'm sure you went to the one in Nichols Hills, the Butler Mansion.
I did indeed.
That's when I started coming on board as a volunteer, and we would throw parties. It was a group called the Associates, and yeah. So and I ended up getting hired.
I had a friend who worked for the museum when it was at the Butler Mansion. I forget what she did, but she arranged to have a session one Saturday, I believe it was, for aspiring screenwriters to come pitch movie ideas to the Sundance Institute.
Wow.
The Sundance Institute was only a couple of years old, and they were hungry for scripts to develop. Mm-hmm. And my roommate and I came up with a really stupid idea. But we pitched it. Yeah. And I'm sure the guy was wondering why did I come to Oklahoma to hear these two bozos? But we walked in, and the guy who we were talking to wasn't, but looked like Robert Redford.
Well, yes, and actually Robert Redford came when a cable company, I don't even know if it was Cox at the time, but they were threatening to get rid of the Sundance Channel. And so he came in as a part of the program, and he brought his wife at the time. I think she's still his wife. But anyway, we were all like freaking out, Robert Redford's here. And we also had Janet Leigh come in.
I got to meet her there.
Yeah. That was a part of the opening of the theater that happened in April. We decided to delay the theater opening because it needed it. I mean, I have photos of the seats on the day before we were opening. So, but she was great, and everyone was there was some fun, sweet geeks that came with their Psycho poster
Right.
and had her sign them, and she was fun. God rest her soul. I asked her, I said, I'm ready for Jamie to come out with a new movie. And she didn't, she was kind of speechless on that, but Jamie was in a lull or something. Maybe it was after A Fish Called Wanda. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, because I love Jimmy. But we also, the Chihuly exhibit, that was quite an undertaking as well, and taking press on it with Dale. And, let me just back up on the Dale Chihuly thing. Leslie Chihuly, Dale's wife, is from Oklahoma City. Her mother's name is Jo. I forget her last name, which is wrong of me. But she was out of Edmond, and she worked very hard with the Edmond Arts Institute. And she would always get little retail Chihulys to be auctioned off for the Edmond. And she'd get that through her daughter. And her brother's name was Mark Madison. But anyway, Leslie started calling on Carolyn back at the fairgrounds, saying, there's this whole world out there of this glass blowing art, and it just doesn't seem to have reached Oklahoma. And this was like the 90s. It just hasn't reached Oklahoma. So Carolyn and Leslie just struck up for friendship, and then they figured out a way to get that Chihuly, the big tall tower. They negotiated that together, and we actually went up to Seattle to check on the status of the tower, and they had a mini version. We got to see his studios, which he has like a pool where he's got Chihuly glass underneath a glass that you swim over. And anyway, and they fed us. Oh my gosh, and it was about 20 of us, including board members and staff. And anyway, so there was that. That was magical.
So Oklahoma City Museum of Art has this incredible Chihuly exhibit with the tower in the atrium.
Yep.
That is a signature piece.
Yes.
I mean, it is definitely a signature destination piece for folks to go to. And you're telling me that this whole arrangement with Chihuly began because his wife is from Oklahoma City and struck up a friendship with Carolyn Hill?
Yep. I mean, she just walked in one day to the Fairgrounds Museum, and, Carolyn would talk of it often. And, they would come back and visit, and Leslie played a role in that. And Leslie kind of nurtured the relationship. And when Carolyn passed away, they sent a Chihuly in her honor. That's really pretty. There's an angel called a putti. That's a glass-blown angel that he would hide into other larger glass installations. He's got like 3 in the tower. He's got a few in the ceiling that's in the permanent exhibit. And then, but they got this beautiful piece for Carolyn and sent it in her honor. And, we held her funeral in the lobby, and that was positioned by it.
One of the things about the permanent exhibit that was in the original exhibit that the story I just love is there's this one piece that's a long birch log, and there are these, I believe they're purple or violet colored tubes of and they're sunk into holes that have been drilled into this log, but the log came from a tree that was on Carolyn's yard, in her yard.
Right. Well, so they were like the Chihuly team, which there's this whole team. They're like, we need a birch wood for this installation. And we were like, okay, I guess a tree needs to be cut down somewhere. Well, that 2007 ice storm? No. It had to have been before then. It was like, it had to have been in 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
It had to have been around then. Anyway.
A recent ice storm before the opening.
Yes. And so there it was. So they got it and they did something to it so it wouldn't peel up. What do we call it?
Deteriorate. I don't know. Rot.
The treatment you do so it doesn't rot.
Right.
Petrify. I don't know. Anyway, that was a great story.
I've always loved that, and I think about that every time I go through and see that exhibit, and it's actually one of my favorite parts of the whole collection.
Mine too. A lot of them are. That color purple is really hard color to achieve in glass blowing, so it was really dynamic. Anyway, yeah.
All right. So after the art museum, you, I'm fond of saying that you were an influencer before I knew that term existed.
And that was before social media. I would send out an email. We really loved sending out emails to our membership that was growing. And we just let them know what's going on inside. And that's why I like email marketing so much. It's still going and blowing, the email marketing.
Sure.
But anyway, we would send out newsletters with photos, and people just loved seeing what it looked like on the inside as far as construction. And anyway, we just tried to take them along on the ride.
But you tried doing that as a freelancer for a while.
Oh, I did. I left the art museum and went out freelancing on social media.
And then eventually landed at the Myriad Gardens.
Yes. The Myriad Gardens had gone through this amazing $40 million renovation because of Project 180. It was all brought on by Larry Nichols, who got tax funding for building a 50-story building, and he decided he wanted his employees to have a great front yard. And he'll say it, Mr. Nichols will say, and all you could see from the gardens was this berm. Because of how the funding worked for building the Myriad Gardens, is kind of built piecemeal.
Right. Right. The whole east side was late.
Yes. And Jim Loftus, an architect extraordinaire, came in. It'd been a whole, we'll go back in time, the I Am Pay project.
Right.
That man was going to just change the city, and all the buildings got torn down, and there was all this grandiose plan, but they ran out of money. But the only thing that came from that IMA plan, I Am Pay, was the Crystal Bridge. But anyway, it had gotten just built and built fast. And so in 2009, they were building the Devon Tower, and Larry decided to turn over this extra money he got as a tax incentive, and remodel the exterior of the Myriad Gardens, as well as put in all those streets. They made them not so one way, and they put medians, and they just really made it pretty. It was a real problem. It was a real pain. And some restaurants closed because of it. But I will tell you that they were genius in how they remodeled the Myriad Gardens. They made it more user-friendly. They put in water features for the kids. They put in, the lake stayed the same, but they put in this great theater. I was calling it theater. It's a band show.
Right.
They kept the water stage, which the water stage has been with that Crystal Bridge forever, even with that Juliet Tower for Oklahoma Shakespeare.
Yes.
I think that's on the... there may be some changes.
It's on the demolition list.
Because no one uses it, and
right.
Kids climb up in it. And
yeah.
Anyway, but it was just so genius. And then they put in this great children's garden. And my family was in town in December. It happened to be a really warm December. They also put in the ice rink. So we decided we want to go see the ice skating. But we got stuck in that children's garden for a good 2-3 hours. We didn't even know. And there wasn't a seesaw. There wasn't... it was just so clever. Anyway, I was just really taken with it, and they'd hired Maureen Heffernan, Larry Nichols, and James Tolbert. They'd found her through a head search. She came from the Maine Coastal Gardens. And anyway, I met her in the Museum Cafe at the time, and I was just like, I'm just so impressed with how the gardens are. And so she proceeded to hire me freelance to help her marketing person out. And then there was a couple changes, and I had an opportunity to be interim marketing. And then it was after the Cat Video Fest where she said, "You're on," because that would have been my baby. But I got to tell you, the gardens was so great. There was movies on the lawn, ice skating, dancing in the gardens,
Yes.
salsa dancing, 90s hip hop dancing, full moon bike rides, yoga. They tried others, they tried Tai Chi. And anyway, I was in charge of promoting all of that and making sure the crowd came. Oh, and they had concerts, of course. It was just so beautiful and wonderful how that remodel happened. And then in 21, we cleared out the Crystal Bridge Conservatory and did a renovation for it. So I've been through a lot of construction projects.
Yeah.
Because let me just back up a little bit. In 2019, they opened Scissortail Park, which became a part of the Myriad Gardens as far as management. So I had to go through that construction phase before they hired their marketing person in. But I have like a construction hat that I just don't know what to do with. It says Museum Princess on it. I used it for the park, and I also used it for the Crystal Bridge renovation.
Well, hang on to it, because MAPS 4 is building some more venues, and you may have an opportunity to promote some of those.
Well, have you ever been involved with a construction project?
Yes.
Oh, that's right. Here.
We're sitting
here. Yes, we're sitting in one.
A 4-year construction project.
That's right. And it's a lot of work. Well, it's just dusty and trying to promote that, and the terminology you want to make sure is right, of course. And anyway, it was dusty and loud. But I will be happy to not have a construction project in any part of my career finale.
So for the foreseeable future, you're now working for the Oklahoma Gazette.
I am.
And as an OG for the OG.
That's right. Bill Bleakley, he was like, I really want to move on. I started this in 79, and it took till like 2016, 17, where he was like, I'm going to try to find a buyer. So he found a buyer, and at that time, the dispensaries were popping up everywhere. And so the Gazette did a lot of the dispensary advertising, because it was really the only outlet that dispensaries could advertise in legally. And so then it just kind of overtook the magazine, even editorial-wise. I mean, there's new strand, new strand coming up.
I got to say, it's when I quit reading it, because I wasn't a customer, so
I know.
There was no reason for me to.
I know. We lost some arts organizations and a university that religion is prominent to them. They didn't even want the stands in the university anymore for their students. And so then in 23, they decided, maybe it was 22, they decided to make this grandiose post that print was dead. And here's why.
Right.
And it was done in like 8 red 1080 by 1080 boxes with reversed out text. Print is dead is one. And then here's why. And it was just really, it was kind of trying to be teaching, but it came across as maybe. So then they decided to just make it online. And then that went dark in 23. And that's when a couple of employees were like, this can't happen. It broke their heart. They've been keeping tabs. And when they went to OKGazette.com and saw it was dark because the bill hadn't been paid, they're like, no. We got to come. So one girl named Kimberly Walker, I call her a girl. We don't mind being called girls, but she's a woman. She sought out to find some funding and financing, and she found it in a man named Drew Williamson, and someone I had not met before. But he was like, yes, let's bring it back. He came up with the branding, the OG, and so we're having fun with that.
And so once again, the Oklahoma Gazette, the OG, is sort of the mouthpiece to promote everything culture in Oklahoma City.
Yes, we're getting back up and running. It's just a monthly, whereas before it was a weekly. And the problem we're having is they run out. And we publish every second Wednesday. But people have been taking them and not putting them back like they used to. And so as a result, all of our locations are running out. And it's like, people are like, why isn't there gazettes at this location? It's like, well, they were on the list. They got a stack and they ran out. So I guess we'll have to increase our printing. But yes, so we're newsy. We got news still happening.
Good.
And people really love that. They love that chicken fried news.
Oh, I love the chicken fried news.
And then, we're reporting on local government. It's this editor who was a OG with the Gazette. Her name is Brittany Pickering. She's our editor now, and she has a pool of about 43, 44 journalists that she chooses from. First of all, they wait for pitches. They allow the reporters to make pitches, and lots of good ideas there. And then they also assign reporters. We got a food writer. We got a culture writer, Phil Backrot's doing films.
Good.
And so I like the culture side, but I understand the importance of the news side. But I love to do web content management and email marketing. So they've given me access, and I am clean. That website hasn't been cleaned since the new owners came in, and there's been some places that have gone under over the years.
Sure.
But my gosh, there's places that have come in like the Tower Theater, like Beer City Music Hall, the Criterion. So anyway, my point is while many restaurants closed, and I will say churches closed, First Christian Church at 36 and Walker, we know what happened there.
Yeah.
And there's just been so many closures, but from those ashes have come these really creative. I went to a Hamilton rave at Beer City. I'm just seeing so many creative things, and and I'm in charge of the calendar, and I'm making sure the calendar is really up to date and a very valuable resource for people planning their week and their weekend and even their month. I think the Convention and Visitors Bureau does an amazing job of a calendar of events. But you have to clean it up, though.
Leslie Spears, thank you for your service to the culture of Oklahoma City.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Oklahoma City's saved my life many times.
That's a good line to end on. This is This Town OKC. I'm Rick Allen Lippert.